Hello, 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 and welcome. My name is Raymond Aaron, New York Times top 10 bestselling author. I've been a professional speaker for almost 4 decades. I'm a serial entrepreneur and adventurer, but right now I have been promoted to be introducer. Indeed, I'm introducing a dear friend of mine, Jack Canfield. He is the co-creator of the entire Chicken Soup for the Soul series of books. He has written other books outside of that series, notably Success Principles, and he was one of the stars of the movie The Secret, and he's a dear, wonderful, honest, genuine friend of mine. And here you are, Jack. Thank you for joining me. And a lot of people are on the line excited. And as promised, you said you would talk about three interesting concepts, three really, really important concepts that are relevant for today. What are those three? And then we'll go over each one.
Well, leadership is really important. Innovation, have to innovate, and then partnerships. The importance of having partnerships in today's world. I mean, it's always been important, but today it's even more important.
Yeah, we're in a very special time. We're in a very special time, and innovation, leadership, and partnership. Okay, good. Which one do you want to start with?
Leadership.
Okay, go.
So in the Success Principles, I wrote a whole chapter on leadership, and the importance of leadership in today's world is we are all looking for leadership. And you notice there are numerous areas that are fairly commonly well known right now where leadership is lacking. And so we really need to step up and all be leaders. Leadership is not necessarily a position in a company. You're not the CEO or the manager. It's a role you play. It's a function you can fulfill simply by stepping into it. And a leader, as I wrote in the Success Principles, a leader needs to have a clear vision. In other words, a leader needs to say, where are we going? When John F. Kennedy said in 1968, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, he meant that. And so the reality was, it's actually 1962 when he said that. And so what happens is all these people got involved in wanting to participate, and we got there before the end of the decade. So having that clear vision of what you want to accomplish. In my company, we have a clear vision to create 1 million trainers to teach the Success Principles by the year 2030. Mark Victor Hansen and I had a clear vision that we wanted to sell 1 billion Chicken Soup for the Soul books by that same time. We're 600 million into it at the moment, so we're well on our way to achieving that goal. So the second thing a leader has to have is the ability to share that vision. This is where storytelling becomes very, very important. Leaders need to learn how to tell stories that inspire people for that vision and also the values they have and so forth. The other thing is clear values. That leaders need to know to say, what are the organizational values? In our company, it's love, it's joy and fun, it's ethics and responsibility, and it's integrity. And so basically these values guide our decisions. I don't have to tell my staff, make this decision or come to me with, if you decide based on those values, I know we're going to make the right decisions. The third thing is to have clear goals. In other words, if you have a clear vision, a mission, and goals need to be how much by when. I was working with a national franchise pizza company recently and doing Success Principles training with their managers. And one of the things I discovered about them, which I was so happy to learn, was that everyone in that company knew what the corporate goals were, knew what the franchise goals were. They said you could walk into any restaurant, is a little pizza restaurants, and go up to the guy who's cleaning the table, which might be a high school or a college kid with a part-time job, and say, do you know what the goal of this organization is? He said, yeah, 20% growth in profits by the end of this year. And what is your role in that? My role is to get these tables cleaned as fast as possible so we can maximize the quickness of the turnover so that we can reach that goal. Now, most companies don't have that. I wrote a book called The Power of Focus with Les Hewitt and Mark Victor Hansen. And when we interviewed 2,000 entrepreneurs, some by interview like this and some by survey. And what we found were there are three things that actually changed or made the difference between a successful entrepreneur and an unsuccessful entrepreneur. The successful entrepreneurs had they had greater clarity of mission, vision, values, and goals than most people do. The second thing is they were action oriented. They basically took action. A lot of people are ready, aim, 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 and they never fire. You know, they're waiting for like 14 doves to fly over the house in the sign of a cross, and that tells them this is the day to do it, you know. So you've got to get out there and begin. And that's a real big thing, I think, for most people. Microsoft, we know, does that. They put out programs before they've debugged it, because we're constantly having to send corrections to Microsoft. If they waited until they had a perfect program, Microsoft wouldn't exist. And so we have to be willing to make mistakes along the way, learn from those mistakes, which leads to another factor of leadership, which is to be open to feedback. Most leaders don't listen. You know, it's my way or the highway. I'm the boss. Do as I say. If you don't like it here, find another job. You know, the old leave it or, you know, love it or leave it kind of thing. That doesn't work very well. And so we need to be listening with the idea of learning something, being willing to be transformed by the information, not always trying to transform others, but have it be a two-way street where the leader's listening. The next thing is to walk the talk. In other words, if you want everyone to be on time, you need to be on time. One of the things we found in a recent survey is the most people that were late to meetings were the bosses or the person who called the meeting. And so people would stop coming to the meetings on time because they say, well, the meetings never start on time. Why should I be there on time? And so it's really critical that you walk the talk, you keep your agreements, you live by the values, and you demonstrate that. You let people know you do that. And then finally, I would say, have a culture of coaching. Most leaders are tellers. They're leader by command rather than, you know, coaching. So learn how to be a coach. So when you're working with your employees or your team that underneath you, whether, you know, you could be a network marketing company, you have a team underneath you, whatever, you want to make sure that you are learning how to coach them to be successful. And you want to build other leaders. The most successful leaders are the ones that have built the most leaders. I heard someone say, a leader is not the one with the most followers. A leader is the one with the most leaders that he's trained or she's trained. And so I really think that's true. And then finally, I would just say gratitude. You have to be grateful. They found that 80% of people working in companies felt they weren't appreciated enough. And only 17% felt they were appreciated enough. And 50% said they would stay longer working for or volunteering for an organization if they felt appreciated more than they were.
Wow. Well, that was like an avalanche of wisdom just for leadership.
Well, I'd written a chapter on it before, so I did have a little bit to say.
That's okay. I know an interesting quote. It's better to be the guide from the side rather than the sage from the stage.
I think that's true, especially in the world of training and consulting and speaking. I agree with that.
Good. So dazzle us with either innovation or partnership. Which one?
Well, let's go with innovation. I think innovation is important, that you have to realize that, well, let me talk about our own history of innovation. We had to innovate. I was doing a workshop series. You've done the same tour over in the Middle East, the Gulf states. We went to Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain, I forget all the different countries, Iran, Dubai. And you and I actually, I got to Dubai after you did. And we spoke in the same theater, and I was in the back waiting to go on. And it said Raymond Aaron was here. And I wrote, so was Jack Canfield on the wall. Anyway, we're walking around, you know, traveling around doing these seminars, and everyone says, well, I want to grow up and do what you do. We need this here in the Arab states. You know, everything over there is by inshallah, God willing, you know, as opposed to we have to set goals and determine what it is we want to do. And so basically, I said, well, we do this train the trainer program. You should come to America. And they said, we can't get visas to go to America. We can't afford to come over there 3 times a year for a week. It's too expensive. And so in order to be able to meet a huge need in the world, we had to innovate and create online programs. So we created an online train the trainer program. It took us 3 years and $300,000 to create that. But the result of it was we now have a program that over 3,200 people around the world have graduated from and become certified success principles trainers, which has literally been one of the most profitable programs in our company. That if we didn't innovate to meet that need, and given when COVID-19 happened, if we hadn't done that earlier, we wouldn't be positioned as we are to continue to do those online trainings. So we were set up to handle this long before it happened, which was really good. I think the other big thing for us has been interviews. In other words, I worked with a company called Bradley Communications, where they train along with me how to be a best-selling author. I know you do that as well. And so what happens is one of the offerings we do when people sign up for the Quantum Leap program, which is kind of their, you know, high-level mastermind, is they get to come not this year, but up until now, to my house. And we do like a 2.5-day seminar for them, and with hot seats. And then on the last day, they would all get to do interviews with me. I would interview them as if we were doing a TV show. We have a TV channel called Talking About Success. And what we realized from that was there's a bigger audience than just these 20 people coming to my house. So we've started now the Talking About Success YouTube channel. We have it now on a number of cable television shows, and we're charging like, $7,000 to come get an interview with me. Gives credibility, just like you help people publish books, which give people credibility. So that's been a huge innovation for us. And then I think also the COVID-19 required us to pivot and really change what we were doing. Because even though we had these online courses already, we had over $1 million in deposits for live trainings in ballrooms of hotels. And all of a sudden, we didn't want to have to return that because we didn't even have it all. Because, when you rent a hotel room and you pay for food up front, a lot of that money had been spent. And so we had to pivot and start creating online delivery systems to keep them involved until there was a live training. Like for our Train the Trainer program, we had people from 7 countries, literally in a 2.5-day workshop where we broke them into small groups. We had them present and get feedback from our senior trainers. And we had to put that together in a couple of weeks. And we did that. And now we realize, wow, that's something we could do for people that aren't part of our Train the Trainer program. We could do that for anyone who wants to, our online people as opposed to our live people. So that's given us a whole new business model. And then the other thing, finally, I would say is in our writing, one of the things I did this year was put together a workbook, and I hadn't done that before. So the Success Principles now has a workbook, and we're selling one workbook for every 10 books we sold. So that's going to lead to $100,000 of revenue for me by the end of the year. They sold out in 2 days on Amazon.com. So I think you have to be constantly watching for what is the market wanting. What are other people giving you ideas for? I go to everyone else's website and say, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? Should I be doing that? So constantly innovating.
I had an experience like that 10 years ago. I was coaching an older couple in Australia, and they do workshops, and they hadn't had a gig in 2 years. Mm-hmm. They said, what should I do? And I said, I don't know. Why don't you write a book or something? They said, what? How do you write a book? So I had written a few books by then. So I gave them some ideas. And I wondered, whoa, what a big reaction that was. So when I called my next client and they told me their problem, I said, I don't know, why don't you write a book or something? Really? How do you write a book? And I did that for 3 or 4 more coaching clients. And I realized, I think there's something here. And so I created a program on how to write a book. And now it's my flagship program, bringing in more money than any of my other services and helping more people distinguish themselves than ever. But thank God I was willing to innovate instead of saying, I am a coach, I don't publish books. Mm-hmm. So you need to be listening. You need to be listening all the time. You never know when that little voice is going to come to you.
Well, I just heard a title for a book you should write. It could be very thin. It's called, Why Don't You Write a Book About That? You should really do that. Talk about the value.
Your last topic in which you are going to have us tilt our head back and drink from Niagara Falls is on partnership.
Well, our whole business was built on partnerships. I mean, literally, my biggest leap was when we did Chicken Soup for the Soul, and that was a partnership with Mark Victor Hansen. So we created an LLC. We had 2 companies that fed into that. We produced over 200 books together, and you were part of a couple of those. And so the reality is that that partnership led to me making literally tens of millions of dollars over the year. And I think alone, I would have done okay, but Mark had a set of skills I didn't have. Mark's a master marketer, salesperson. I'm more of a behind the scenes guy, detail guy, good story editor, et cetera. So I think that what happened is that partnership was incredible. We have a partnership with all these summits that I do, like do a partnership with you. We co-present several times a year. You always hire me for things, and I work with you on all kinds of projects. Nick Nanton, we have a publishing deal with him where he puts together these multi-authored books, and that's been very lucrative for us over the years. our partnership with Bradley Communications doing these best-selling author programs. We did an online course called that, which has sold extremely well, helped a lot of people become New York Times bestsellers. And then we do these quantum retreats at my house every year for 4 times a year, except for now with the COVID-19, we're doing them virtually. Maybe we'll keep doing that way. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. Our tech company that handles all of our online stuff is a partnership because we don't have that level of technology ability. I mean, I've got some people that work with them that are hipper than I am about that. That's been cool. Chicken Soup for the Soul was a partnership with Health Communications, Inc. If that publisher hadn't been willing to work with us as well as they did, we became their #1 product, if you will. But there was a relationship that developed over the years. It really was a partnership. He'd come up with ideas for us. We'd come up with ideas for him. That worked out really well. And then all of the co-authors, over 100 different co-authors that we did books with, many like Marcy Shimoff. I think we did 8 women's soul books with Patty Aubrey, 11 books. My sister Kim, I think 19 Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul spinoffs, etc. So that was a big deal. And then it just keeps on going. Patty's been doing partnerships now with a woman named Darlene Whitehurst, Patty Aubrey, my co-president of the company, now the president, I'm the CEO. And what happens is that they created an organization called Goal Friends. So it's women with goals, Goal Friends. And that's become a huge, there's hundreds of chapters around the world now. And she never would have done that alone. And Darlene couldn't have pulled it off without her. So look for people that have the skills or the networks or the markets that you don't have and partner with them. You know, Marcy Shimoff wrote a book. I forget which one it was. It was Love for No Reason, Happy for No Reason. It was the first one. She partnered up with a guy in Japan who was a best-selling author, put his name on the book. He didn't do a darn thing. But because he was a best-selling author in Japan, they sold hundreds of thousands of books in Japan they never would have sold. So there's lots of partnership things that can be extremely lucrative.
Do you know that there was an author, fairly famous, but not too famous, who wrote a book, The President is Missing. And the story that I heard is he approached Bill Clinton and asked Bill Clinton if he would be the co-author of it. And of course, it sold tens of millions instead of 10,000.
Right.
If The President is Missing is written by Bill Clinton, that's a big deal. And so that was...
Yeah, we did Chicken Soup for the baseball fan soul or baseball lover soul, one of those two. And we approached Tommy Lasorda, who was the manager of the Dodgers. And we made him a co-author on the book. He did a little bit. He helped us reach out to a few people, not too many. But the point was, with his name on the book, he was a big baseball icon. We sold many more than we would have sold just Jack and Mark.
Yes, yes, totally. And I know that your skill is, I don't want to say behind the scenes, but it's being careful and being creative and helping edit and just clarifying the book, using your wisdom to do that. And Mark's vision and ability is just to see gigantic marketing opportunities, even bigger than other people want to believe. He's just so vast.
Right.
And the two of you had such different skills and you came together and produced a miracle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you've overfulfilled. I brought you on my stage in order to talk about leadership and innovation and partnership, and you've done a masterful job. And I and all my listeners have enjoyed it and are very grateful.